Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
I've done a couple of videos about identity and twins and people with the same names a couple times in the last year or two. And I've mentioned before issues where I've encountered somebody with my name, for instance. We'll get to that because Danny tipped me off to a story out of Florida. A couple other people sent it to me too, and I couldn't find the emails where they mentioned it, so I apologize. But from the Associated Press, mistaken identity lands Florida man in jail for 5 days. 5 days in jail, and he wasn't the right guy. But he had the right name, and that's the problem. South Florida cook says he lived a nightmare recently because police thought he was a fugitive with the same name who looked kind of like him and had almost the same birthday. Now, here's the thing. If you're going to use birthday as an identifying factor, you can't say, well, they had almost the same birthday. Because, dates are numbers. So if you find somebody with almost the same birthday, it's not the same birthday. So out of Coconut Creek, Florida, a cook from South Florida says he went through the nightmare because police mistook him for a fugitive with the same name, same looks, and almost the same birthday. The man's name is Leonardo Silva Oliveira. He's 26 years old, and that's the name of both guys. Leonardo Silva Oliveira, and they're both 26. So one of them is wanted for probation violation on charges out of Boca Raton. On January 20th, authorities arrested another man named Leonardo Silva Oliveira, who's also 26, outside the Broward County restaurant where he works as a cook. The South Florida Sun-Sentinel reports the story of the mix-up. Oliveira, who is the cook, spent 5 days in the Broward County jail. He says authorities should have known he was not the fugitive because he's 10 days younger and does not have tattoos. And so when they book people and arrest them and mugshots and all that stuff, they make a note of a variety of things besides the photograph. They'll often say how tall they are, how much they weigh, and if they have any identifying scars or tattoos, and of course their date of birth. So this man who was arrested is 10 days younger and has no tattoos, whereas the fugitive who was wanted has tattoos on both arms, including one of a clock. He's got a clock on his right arm. He says that when they booked him, that is the cook, they checked my arms and said, oh, doesn't have any tattoos. But they still took him in and locked him up. He was in jail for 5 days when authorities finally realized their mistake. Now, the Coconut Creek Police Department's arrest report said the cook was identified through Florida's Driver and Vehicle Information Database, even though his birth date was wrong. It was not the correct birth date. Now, I suppose they're going to say, well, maybe when we booked the guy, the original guy, he gave us a bad birthday. But, they have that information on file somewhere, you'd think. Authorities in Palm Beach County asked for help identifying the cook as the fugitive, according to the police spokesperson, but it's unclear who they asked. So when he said to them, you got the wrong guy, no tattoos, and wrong birthday, that they then did ask for help, but we don't know who they asked. When police arrested him outside the Deerfield Beach restaurant where he worked, it was the first time he'd ever been contacted by law enforcement. He said that they first put him in a lockdown for 24 hours, and then they finally let him out of his cell for 1 hour a day on Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. But he was in a room, a jail cell, with a little window, no TV, and nothing to do but just stare at the walls and try to stay warm. And of course, wonder what on earth is happening to you. Is this a Kafka story? Oliveira said he had told everyone they had the wrong man. How could I be wanted on probation when I've never been arrested for anything? It was a nightmare. It was a nightmare. During his first appearance hearing in court, a court judge said she was powerless to interfere because the case originated out of a different county. So he gets picked up in one county, and apparently the probation violation charge is in another county. And so when he's in front of her and says, look, they got the wrong person, she said, I can't do anything for you because the arrest is being made at their behest. That seems to me to be a problem. Because I have seen judges who will basically tell you that in their courtroom, they can do anything they want. And so I have a sneaky feeling if she had wanted to, she could have hopped on the old hoot and holler and called somebody down at the other county and said, we just picked somebody up here, presumably for you guys, but he's got no tattoos and a different birthday. Should they still hold him or not? So on Monday, he hired an attorney who filed a motion to have his client released on the theory that he was the wrong guy. He noted that the fugitive weighed 213 pounds when he was arrested a couple years ago, while his client weighs $150. So there is a difference in weight also. So I suspect they have different builds, as we would say. Also, his client has no tattoos or criminal history and a different birthday. That birthday thing, really. Before another hearing could be held, the Broward County Sheriff's Office obtained the fingerprints for the fugitive, compared them to the cook's, and then decided to let him go because besides having no tattoos, having a different body type, having a different birthday, he's got different fingerprints too, and apparently that's enough. When it was determined that the fingerprints didn't match, Oliveira was immediately released from jail, the sheriff's spokesperson said. Immediately released. And again, I'm going to pick on the word immediately because he was immediately released after 5 days in jail. I know what you're going to say. They meant immediately upon learning he was the wrong guy. Well, they could have learned earlier if they had tried. And I understand, and I've spoken to people who work in jails. I've spoken to police officers, and they'll tell you, we hear this all day long. You got the wrong guy. You got the wrong guy. But once in a while, you have to understand that if the person's telling you the truth, you should at least glance at something. Glance at, I don't know, the mug shots maybe. Do they look alike? No. You know, the mug shot's 5 years old. Yeah, but they still look really, really different. But in high school, I went to school with two kids in my grade, and the class wasn't that large. Both named Mark David Brown. Mark David Brown. And I remember this vividly because Mark David Brown, the first, which is what we did, we had to number them, came to school a year earlier than the other one. So one year, we all got to meet Mark David Brown. The next year, another guy shows up. First year, hey, what's your name? Mark Brown. You go, that's funny. There's another guy named Mark Brown here. What's your middle name? David. Every single class that he was in, teacher would go, Mark Brown, what's your middle name? David? Okay, so we numbered them. So the first one was Mark David Brown, the first. The second one was Mark David Brown, the second. Now, they didn't look alike, and I presume they had different birthdays. I'm assuming they got together and discussed that. But I've mentioned before, I lived briefly in an area where I was poking around, and I don't even know what I was looking for. But I found that there was a guy with a criminal record about this long, and I'm hoping my left hand's off the screen because it should be further away than that. But the guy had a criminal record as long as the day is, and his name was mine. First, middle, and last. Identical names. And he lived not far from me. Now, I never crossed paths with him, which is good considering his criminal record. But my concern was if I ever got pulled over by a police officer and they ran my name, it might ring a bell. And I looked, and the guy was older than me significantly. And so I've mentioned before, I made a mental note. If you ever get stopped by the police in this area, as you hand your driver's license over, you have to say, please look at the birthday. Please look at the birthday. Because I know that name is tied to some other stuff here, but it ain't me. It ain't me. So, you know, it's crazy this stuff can happen. And I don't know how common of a name it could be to be Leonardo Silva Oliveira and be 26 years old. But these guys apparently are basically a county apart in Florida with the exact same names. They're the same age if you're just counting off the years. And they look kind of alike. But one of them is substantially more heavy set than the other. And that same heavy set guy has got tattoos on both arms. And so you would think that somebody would go, this guy here is a little thinner. He doesn't have the tattoos, and he's insisting he's a different guy. Now, I know someone's going to say, Steve, tattoos can be removed. Yeah, they can be. But, you know, when somebody comes in and is making that much noise, and they've got identification, but it's got a different birth date on it, you can contact the state and see how long that driver's license has been active. The guy's 26 years old, so presumably he may have had it for 10 years. So they could say, yeah, that's actually him. That's a different guy. And you'd also think they could go into some kind of database and see if there's two people named that in the state. So for instance, if they both have driver's licenses, They might say, yeah, there's actually two guys in the state with that name. And there's going to be other sources of data also that would show that there's two people with that name in that area, especially they've both been there for a while. So it's a bizarre story. As you can imagine, it'd be a nightmare. But to be arrested because someone else with your name broken the law, and when they arrest you and say that you're being arrested for something you didn't do, and you're like, but that ain't me. And they're like, well, this is you, first, middle, last name, and you're this old? Yeah, but, so, crazy story. Danny, thanks for sending it. The Associated Press ran it. Mistaken identity lands a Florida man in jail for 5 days, but he's out now. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. I want to get a vending machine with fun-size candy bars and a magnifying glass front. You'll be mad, but it'll be too late.